Hilchas Chovel U'Mazik Perik Shvi. So here the Rambam starts speaking about the din of a hezek shein in nikr. Whereas when a person is mazik someone's money, he has to pay. Now the din is that's only if you're mazik someone's mom in be'efen, you could see the change that you made. The item was originally a complete keli, now it's a broken keli. You had a behemoth, now the behemoth died. Masha'inkin, if you do something to someone's item and you can't really see that something was done, you would metame someone's truma. So the truma, when it was toir, was able to be eaten by a kohen. Now that it's tummy, it cannot be eaten. So memela it's kamat worthless because it could only be burnt. It could be used only as fuel. If you take wine and you're menasechet lavid zara, so before the wine could be drunk, and now the wine is aser bano. But when you look at the wine, you don't see that there's any hezek. So that's a hezek shein and nikr. You cannot see in the item that there's a hezek. So the Rambam paskins that the din is that a hezek shein and nikr leishmei hezek, and therefore minatera you don't have to pay for that hezek. And it's just midrabanan you have to pay for that hezek, and that's only be'efin kazeh that you were amazed at, as the Rambam will say the pratim. That's a din. I'm just saying, some people ask that l'chura sofkos of you mazik the item. Why should there be a chilik between a hezek shein and nikr and a hezek and nikr? L'mayin afkaminu l'chura you cause them damage. So l'chura the answer for this is there's a tesis in a few places that says there's an expression milva ksuva b'teira. So tesis says that the gather of a milva ksuva b'teira means those chiyuvim which is a chiddush that the teira was mechadish. The fact that if someone lends you money, you have to pay him up, that you have to pay him back, that's a pashta zach, that's not a chidush shechit Masha'inkin, those chiyuvim, which is a chidush shechit that goes into the gather of a milva ksuva b'teira. And Tesis uses that as an example in Ksubis, Daf Nun Vav, and other places, that Tesis uses that as an example if someone's mazik someone's money. So in other words, the musik that if the pashtus advarms, you mazik someone's money, you have to pay. But Tesis seems to be saying that that's not so pashut. You mazik someone's money, taka, but where does it say you have to pay? The Torah was mechadish that when you mazik someone's money, you have to pay. And that chiddush of the Torah was only b'negei hezek nikr. Masha'inkin hezek shein nikr wasn't a chiddush of Torah. The Torah wasn't mechadish this din, and that's only midrabanan. Just maybe to make it easier a little bit to understand that the havana that a hezek shein nikr is leishmei hezek. Nochmal, Perik Shvi, Hamazik Momen Chavere Hezek Sheini Nikr. So Hail V'lei Nishtana Hadover V'lei Nifsed Datzurase. There's no change. There's no visible change in the item. So therefore, Hazeze Potem and Atzishlum and Teira. Minatera, when you mazik something and there's no obvious change in the item that you are mazik, so that's Potter. Avon Divrei Seif Ma'omru Hail V'Hivchas Dameim. Even though you didn't actually change the item, but you begashmis, but on the other end you made it worth less. Says the Riber Hariza Chayiv, you're Chayiv to pay because you made the item worth less. U'mishalim Mashehivchas Midameim, you have to pay the amount of money that it's worth less than it was originally. Ketzat Harei Shetime Echlon Teirim Shel Chaveri. There's Echlon Teirim, there's Echlon Tmei, not only Truma. Echlon Teirim. Oy Shedimolei Peiris, or he took Peiris which he had, which were chulin, and anyone was allowed to eat it, and he mixed it with truma. Now, since he mixed it with truma, so only a kohen is allowed to eat it. So it's worth less because it's something which only a kohen would buy. So it's obviously worth less. The person has wine, which is good wine, and he mixed in yayin nesach into that wine. So now you can't drink the wine. You look at the wine, you don't see any difference. But lepel, as a result of the fact that yayin nesach is in this wine, you cannot drink the wine. Shari also avakel v'chen kol ki. So in these cases, these are the examples that I'm giving of a hezek shein nikr time echlon shel chaveri dima leperes, or he was put a tipas yayin nesach into his wine. So shaman mashehifsid u'mishalem nezik shalom and ayafa sheben chaser kedar kol hamazikim. So it's a din d'rabbanan. Midiraisa there's no chiyuv tashlumin, but midrabbanan there is a chiyuv tashlumin, even though it's a hezek shein nikr. Now v'davar zeh knasu shekonsu chacham. This is a knas kedei shel kolechad min hamashchisim heilach u'metami taresev shel chaveri ve'im patranik. There are certain people that want to be mazik. Mainly those people that are mashchisim shouldn't go around and be mazik in the eifon of hezek sheini nikr. They'll be metami taresev shel chaveri, and they'll say they're potter. So in order to avoid that there being these type of hezekis, so the chacham instituted that when someone is mazik sheini nikr, he does have to pay. Lefichach, since it's really only a din d'rabbanan, in order to avoid people doing these types of acts of rishus, is lefichach im mes zeh shehizik hezek sheini nikr. the person that was mazik hezek shein nikr died, is ain't given on nezik min chasav. Even though lepel he left karka, and normally you would be given the chayvus that he owes. Let's say if he was mazik, you would be given from his nechasav. But this hezek shein nikr, which is a knas on him, doesn't have a din that the Yisayim have to pay for it. Shali konsu chacham lezesh aviv hizik. Aval hayere shali yasa klum lekonsu. So the pasuk the pshat is that there was no shibur on the nechasim. There's a din on the person. The person has to pay as a knas. But since lepel, it's only a chiyuv on the person as a knas. So therefore, if the person is alive, he has to pay the money. Masha'inken, if he's no longer alive, there was no shibur on his nechasim for the Yisayim to have to pay up this knas. V'chein hamazik hezek shein nikar b'shgoge beinus. And as a result of the fact that it's only a din d'Rabbanan, so and it's a knas, so that knas is only for someone that did a b'mezid. Masha'inken, someone that did a b'shegig. A beinus is poter sheli konsu ella hamischaven lahazik midaite. Someone that wants to make a hezek wasn't a shegig, and it was midaite. It was something that it wasn't an oinus. So b'kitzer, so the kudah nachamol hezek shein nikar is only a din d'Rabbanan, and as a result of that, if he dies, you're not gaver from the Yisayim to pay up this hezek, and even from him, you only gaver from him if he was a mezid and not if he was a shegig or an oinus. Now hakoyanim shepiglu es hazevach b'mezid. There's a musik called pigul, where the kohenim think a machshava, which is pigul, it's a chutz lizmani. So in Mela, they have a machshava of pigul, and they, as a result of that, they invalidate the carbon becomes possible, and now he has to replace the carbon. In other words, he had a carbon, he brought a carbon, he was mechuyev to bring a carbon chatas, a carbon elo, whatever carbon he was mechuyev to bring. And now the kohen went ahead and caused that this carbon should be possible, should become pigul. So in Mela, now he doesn't have a kosher carbon anymore. So the din is chayavan l'shalim. If they did it b'mezid, then chayavan l'shalik. Shalim, however, b'shegig, if they made pigul, b'shegig is pturim. Because that's part of this rule, that a hezek shein and nikar b'mezid is chayav, and b'shegig is patur. V'chein ha'isa melacha b'paras chatas. Someone has a para, and that para is right to be used for a para aduma. And now the person goes ahead and does malacha with this para. So now this para can no longer be used for para aduma. Or b'meichatas, the din is if a person does malacha with meichatas. So meichatas is water that you drew from a mayim chayim, and then you put a for apara on it, and you went ahead and you used this meichatas. So again, so you invalidate side the para aduma or side the meichatas is b'mezid. If you did it b'mezid, the person that did it b'mezid is chayav l'shalim. However, b'shegig is potter. Halacha hey, hichnes para lemarbek kedei shetinak v'todush. You have a para aduma. The din is of the para aduma. You did work with the para aduma, so the para aduma becomes a apostle of para aduma. Now here you brought this para into the marbek. The marbek is like a number of paras tied together in order to thresh, to do disha. And now you brought this para aduma into this marbek, and the purpose is that this para should be yoinik mi'imei shetinak, it should be yoinik mi'imei, that's number one. And also, you have in mind tidush. So if lepel, you would just bring it in, almanas, linak, shetinak, this wouldn't be any problem, there's no malach here. But since you also have in mind v'todush, so that mindset of v'todush, that considered that the para did malacha, and therefore that causes that the para shouldn't be considered a para that never did work. And Mamela, the para did work. That's this din. So Nachmal, you brought the para into this marbek, which is the place where the paras are threshing, and the purpose of bringing the para in was shetonic, and also v'todush. Or, that's one case, or v'hisir daitim mechatos. You have the din is that if a person, when you draw the water, in order to have the mechatos, to put the efer para adum in it, that water has to be watched the whole time until you put the efer, like we learned. So memela, you are mesir das from that water. You are mesir das that water, and you caused that water should become puzzle. So you are the shamer on that water, and you are mesir das from that water, and now you caused that water should be puzzle. So be'emes, it's a hezek she'ein nikar. You can't see in the water that it's puzzle, and you can't see in the para that it's puzzle. And we learned till now that a hezek she'ein nikar is taka chayiv midivri seifrim if you did it b'mezit. But over here, since it was done this is a hezek which is done b'machshava. You didn't do it b'maisa. Because when you go ahead and you mitamitareser shel chaverei, or you go ahead and you pour yain nesach into yain shel chaverei, so that's considered you did a maisa. Over here, the Maisa that you did was the fact that you brought the Parah into the Marbik wasn't a problem because it was Shetinak. The problem was that you also had a Machshava of Shetodush. And Alderazeh, the fact that you weren't Shomer, the Mayim, it wasn't a Maisa that asered it. The fact the Heder Ashmira is what asered it. So therefore, over here, there's a din that's potter medin yodem v'chayiv medin shemaim. There's nochamal. A regular din of hezek shein and nikah when you do with a ma'isa that's chayiv medin yodem. That's midrabanan. Mashenkin over here, when it's a hezek shein and nikah which doesn't come through a ma'isa, it comes through a machshava. So then it's potter medin yodem v'chayiv medin shemaim. You have to differentiate between pigul and hichnas potter lemarbik. By pigul, there was the ma'isa avodah. There was the avodah that a person did with a machshava's pigul. So that avodah was a ma'isa that aser. It wasn't the machshava that aser. When you do the ma'isa with the machshava's pigul, that what asers. So it was the ma'isa that asered. Mashenkin over here, there was a ma'isa, you brought the parah in, and that parah you brought in order shetinak. So that ma'isa didn't aser. The problem was only this additional machshava, this additional machshava of a todush. So maybe that's considered that the machshava asered. Therefore, you only chayiv b'din shemayim and not b'din yodem. Halacha vov. Hamenasich yein chaver el avodah zarah. You took someone's wine and you poured it to avodah zarah. So the din is lein neser yain. The yain doesn't become aser. Why? She'ein adam eser adam yisrael eser davar she'ein shalei. So the way you read it, Pashut, it sounds like a person doesn't have an ability to make someone else's wine yain neser. But that's is not the pshat. The pshat, that would be the Pashut pshat of reading the Rambam. But the pshat is that a person wouldn't normally aser someone else's things. So therefore, even though he's saying that he asered, that he did it amanas, but we neman that it wasn't true. Even though he's saying that he's minasich el avodah zarah, we neman that's not true, because a person is not minasich someone else's wine avodah zarah. Ein adam eser davar she'ein shalei. However, v'imhoyelei be'shutfis, if he was a shutfis, so mele when he was being minasich, he was being menasech also his own. Oy shahaya mummer, he was a person that's a mummer. So memela, we could trust that he's taka going ahead and being menasech avodah zarah. Sharehu kegoy. Ei shehisrubay, they warned him. They said, don't do it because you're not allowed to be menasech avodah zarah. And lepel v'kibel asra memela sharehu mummer. So then is harei ze oisrayayin. He is yisrayayin. So again, the word is we assume, it's not so clear in the Rambam. The pshat in the Rambam is we normally assume that he wasn't Menasech avodah zarah. Ein Adam Yisrael Eser Davar She'ein Shalei means we assume he didn't. But if he's a shutif or if he's a mummer or hisrubei, so he has a din of a mummer, so then we assume he did and then he taka aser it. And therefore, v'chayev l'shalom. Now there's another shayla. V'heichis chayev zel l'shalom l'chura for being Menasech avodah zarah dacha isus skila. Menasech avodah zarah is l'aveda v'avodah zarah. V'heichis chayev zel l'shalom v'arim is chayev b'nafshei. L'chura is already mechuyev b'nafshei through the nisuch. So how could he be chayev moment? There's the din of kimli b'drabnei. So the answer is mepnei she'ei shehigbiyei is chayev l'shalom. Ve'enim is chayev b'nafshei ad she'inasech. So in other words, when he picks her up al menas l'nasech, so that's already a maisa gzela. When a person picks something up on menas l'nasech, that's called a maisa gzela. And lepel, when he was menasech it, so mele now it's already something which has no value, and therefore he can't return it. So mele he has to pay it back. So that's the way it works. In other words, the maisa gzela was when he picked it up, when he was igbia, and then he was menasech it, and it's a hezek she'ein nikar, and he can't return it. He can't return it because the hezek she'ein nikar, he can't return it. That's a din, and he's chayav because he can't return it with a hezek she'ein nikar because the din d'Rabbanan. In other words, if not for the din d'Rabbanan that you mechuyev to pay for hezek she'ein nikar, so over here he'd be able to say Arishal chad l'fanecha. Ein achinami, I picked it up and I gazzled it, and lepeil I was menasech it, but lepeil here is it back. It's a hezek she'ein. It doesn't have the same value, but that's a hezek she'ein nikar, and that's considered the same value. So in other words, this din that I have to pay for it, and that hezek she'ein nikar as a shmei hezek causes that I shouldn't be able to use this as a tashlumen for gneva, and that din that I can't use it for a tashlumen for gneva is a din d'Rabbanan. Al derech zeh b'negeh the din of the mechatos. A person's a shamer on a mechatos, and then lepel he wasn't shamed in mechatos, so now he can't return it. Now that din that he can't return it is the chulchura din d'Rabbanan. And over there we're saying that since lepel, the reason why he can't, lepel it only came through machshava, so therefore, so it's only chay b'din shemayim and not b'din yod. Halacha Zayin. Kol hagoyrim lahazik momen chaverei chayev l'shalem nezik sholem min hayofesh shebenochosav k'shar namazikim. So we just finished off learning about the dinim of Hezek Shein and Nikr. So the Rambam paskin that Hezek Shein and Nikr minatera is leishmei Hezek. It's just midrabanan you have to pay, and that's only you have to pay if you were amazed and it was you and not the Yorshim. So that's a din d'Rabbanan. Here the Rambam is speaking about the din of groma. So the Rambam is pasking that a goyrim lahazik mamen chaveri, even though you weren't mamish mazik biyadayim, you were only goyrim lahazik mamen chaveri, is chayev l'shalem nezik sholem and hayofish ben chosav kishara mazikim. Aval pi she'enei hu hamazik zan nezik atzmi b'achreina. He wasn't the one that actually did the hezek. A beheil v'hu hagerim arishin. He's the one that was goyrim this hezek is chayev. Ketzad hazerik keli shaloi mireish hagag al gabi korim uksosis. A person throws down his keli on top from a gag, and on the bottom there's korim uksosis. There's pillows. Memela pashas the keli is not going to break. Now ubo acher v'kodam v'silik es hakorim yaloretz, and he went ahead and took away these korim yaloretz, and as a result of that is nechpat hakeli ba'oretz v'nishbar. So the person that took it away caused it to break. He didn't break it; he caused it to break. So the din is chayev nezik sholem ki'ilu shavre biyadi, as if he would have broken with his own hand. Why? Because shesila kakorim v'aksos is gorim le'sheyishaver. That was the gram sheyishaver v'chein kol kiyetzibasa. So Memela the Rambam is saying that even though Lepel, he wasn't the one that was mazik biyadayim, he only did something. He took away the korim v'aksos, and through that it became huzak. But nevertheless, he's chayev. Now the Maisa is the Rambam in Hilchas Niskim Moment Perik Beis Halacha Yutes brings over there that Mishase Kalbi Shel Chaveri B'Chaveri, someone rates his on someone's dog to go be mazik somebody. So the din is that he's potter. He's potter. Why? Because bepashtus it's grama. The Rambam doesn't say it's grama. The Rambam just says he's potter. The Rambam says he's potter balakel of chalev. So the questions over there, the Rambam seems to be pottering grama, and over here the Rambam is being mechayev grama. Now that the Magad Mishnah says that there's, like the many Rishonim say, that there's something called garmi and something called grama. Now garmi is like a closer grama, whereas a garmi is something which is a whole diyunim what's garmi and what's grama. But b'chlolus garmi is something which your yutaka didn't do it be a dayim, but it was inevitable to happen as a result of what you did. It was inevitable to happen. Like in this case, you took away the korim uksosis. Obviously, it's going to break. So even though you didn't break it be a dime, but you did something which caused it to inevitably break. Masha'inki, when a person is mishasa kalbu shel chaveri b'chaveri, over there it's not naifan of 100%. I'll call upon him. The Rambam over here clearly writes that grum is chayiv. Over there, the Rambam doesn't really write that grum is potter. The Rambam just says the din. Mishasa kalbu shel chaveri b'chaveri is potter. He doesn't mention why he's potter. Halacha ches. Hazerik keli shel chaveri mireish hagag al gabi korim uksosis shel bala keli. So there's a person takes a keli that belongs to someone else. Reuven takes a keli of Shimon, and he goes ahead and throws it off the roof, and he throws it on top of the pillows or soft items that belong to Nachamal. Reuven takes a keli of Shimon, he throws it off the roof, and it's going onto the pillows of Shimon. It's going onto the pillows of Shimon. Now, the Balakeli, Shimon goes ahead, the Heser HaKorim, he takes his pillows. In other words, he had no right to throw these Keli down, and he has a right to take his pillows. It's his pillows. Is Hazer Chayev. Why? Shezigose hu hagoyrim harishon l'shvidas hakeli. And over here the Rambam seems to be also saying that he's a goyrim. In other words, Lepel, when he threw it, it wasn't supposed to break. It wasn't supposed to break because Lepel would have fallen on the pillows. Lepel, the Balak Keli had a right to take the pillows because it's his pillows. He has a right to take the pillows. You can't be magbalim to take the pillows. And by him taking the pillows, that's causing that this thing is not going to break. Now, who's the one that caused it? So in the case before, when the case was that a person threw his own keli onto pillows, and then someone goes ahead and takes away those pillows, that person had no right to take away the pillows. This person had a right to throw the keli because it's his keli, and the keli wasn't supposed to break. And now the other person takes the pillow, so that person is responsible. Over here, fakir, the person that's throwing the keli really has no right to throw the keli. Why is he throwing the keli? He has no right to throw the keli. And the balak and lepel, but lepel through throwing the keli, the pashtus is not going to break. But now the balak keli went ahead and takes away the pillows, and he has a right to take away the pillows. It's his pillows. So Mela, that causes that the one that threw it should become chayiv. Shezirikosei hu agerim arishon l'shviras hakeli. That's talking about if the bala keli went ahead and took away the pillows, because it's his pillows. However, if someone else went ahead and took away the pillows, so one person throws down someone's keli and it's supposed to fall on the pillows, and lepeil, someone else goes ahead and takes away the pillows. So then shneim chayavim hazerik v'amisalik sheshneim garmu la'abed mamena shelzeh, because they're both gram. Now the pashta taich, when a person takes away the pillows and he causes to break, so we understand that he's a goyim. Because Lepel, he didn't do anything to the keli. He was only goyim that this keli, which is going in the air, should fall down and break. Over here, we're calling the first one also a goyim. What's that? She's also a goyim. Because Lepel, he threw something in a way that the way he was supposed to happen was it's supposed to fall on the pillows. It was supposed to fall on the pillows. The fact that it didn't fall on the pillows came as a result of something else that happened later. But that thing that happened later is not something which you could say shouldn't have happened. So if the Bala Keli, which is the Bala Karim Vixosis, took it away, so you're completely the full Gerim of the Hezek, and therefore you're Chayiv. Mashenkin, if someone else took it away, so therefore that person is Gerim because he was Gerim the Hezek, and you're also the Gerim because Lepel, if you wouldn't have thrown it, it wouldn't have fallen down. So Memela, so you're both a Gerim and Hezek together, even though what you did really shouldn't have been Mazik. But nevertheless, you're considered a Gerim and Hezek together, and therefore you're Chayiv. Halacha test. V'chein haseir of shtaresu shel chaveri. He burns someone's shtar. And knows you have a malva that has a shtar that says someone owes him money. So chayev l'shalom kol hachev shoye b'shtar. He has to pay the money that's said in the shtar. Sha'afal pisha ein guf hashtar moment. The shtar is not really worth any moment. It's not like he was mazik something that was worth money. Ava harigoram la'abed moment. He caused him to lose that money. Ubelvad sheyedele hamazik, but it has to be that we have to establish that there was taka shtar, and that shtar was a real shtar. It was a shtar mekuyim that the malva could have been goiva with the shtar, and how much it said in the shtar. Ubelvad sheyedele hamazik shtar mekuyim hoya was taka shtar mekuyim v'kach hoya kosube, and this is what was written in the shtar. Umachma shesarfei hu ein yochalik b'sachev. That because he burned it, that's why he can be given the chev. But if the mazik is tiny, I don't really believe you that there was a shtar, there was a shtar mekoyim, and this is the amount. Is eine mishalem le'eled dmei aniyar bilvad. Over here, he only pays him dmei aniyar bilvad because lepel he's not being made that he would actually burn such a shtar. But if he's made that he burnt such a shtar, then he has to pay for the shtar. And the question is, Loshna Rambam sounds like l'shalem kol hachev shayeh b'shtar. So if the shtar said he owes him $100, so he has to pay him $100 because he caused that he shouldn't be able to collect $100. I mean, the Pashtus Advarim, the Shach points out in the Rambam, he says it can't be that he owes him the $100 because the shtar on a selling value doesn't have a value of $100. In other words, the value of this chayv right now is not really $100. So it's only a much less value. So Memela, since it's a much less value, so you would only pay how much this shtar would be worth if you would have to sell it. Masha'inkin knows if the shtar says $100 and how much would a malva be able to sell this shtar for, that's what you have to pay for. That's what the Shach says Pshat in Rambam. In Rambam he says it. But the Maisa is in Pashtus Advarim, the way you read the Rambam, I'm saying just saying you read the Rambam, the Pashtus, the Rambam says Chayev l'shalom kol hachev shoye b'shtar. The Pashtus Advarim sounds like you have to pay all the moment, and the Rambam teaches Zeus. Sha'aval pish ein guf hashtar moment. And knows we're not evaluating the value of the shtar. We're not talking about the value of the shtar. We're talking about harigorim la'abed moment. We're talking about the moment which you lost as a result of the fact that the shtar was broken, and therefore we think about that moment which you could have collected. I'm just saying that's the Pashtus Haloshen of the Rambam. Although all the Rishonim, there's arguments exactly how you mon it, but l'chura nobody holds that you actually mon the amount of money that says in the shtar. Halacha Yud. V'chein, another case of goyim. Reuven shoyeneshe b'Shimon. Shimon owed Reuven moment. Reuven had a debt over Shimon. Now umocher hashtar leLevi. So Reuven sold that right to collect from Shimon to Levi. Now v'chozer achar shemochrei. After he sold this debt that Shimon owes him to Levi, so he went ahead and he was mochle l'Shimon. He was meichel Shimon the debt, and the din is harei nifter Shimon k'mesher yizbor b'mkemi. That the din is that amecher shtar chev lechaveri v'chozer u'mochle mochel. That's the din, that even though you sold the debt, but lapel, you could go ahead and mimechel the shtar, and memela, that person doesn't have anything. Now lepeil v'nischayev Reuven leLevi l'shalom Levi kol mashe b'shtar. So over here also, Reuven owes Levi whatever it says in the shtar. Shari gorim le'labed shtar. So again, the lashon of the Rambam is that he has to pay him what it says in the shtar. In other words, the amount of money that it says in the shtar. Even though Lepel right now he didn't mon it yet, and could be there's time to mon it. And this shtar, but Lepel he's causing that he shouldn't be able to mon his debt. V'areu k'misha sarfei. V'chein mochli yeresh Reuven is mishalem hayeresh min hayafish ben chosov. So that's this din, that if a person causes a person not to be able to mon a debt, so Lashon Rambam is that he's not able, he has to pay that amount of money that it says in the shtar. Either he was Seirev Shtaresa Shol Chaveri, or he was Mechel a shtar which he sold to somebody else. So mainly he's causing that buyer shouldn't be able to mund his debt, even though he rightfully does have the right to mund the debt. So mainly he has to pay for the debt. V'chein ha'isa avdei apetiki, and he made an avdei apetiki that this is the place where he owes somebody money, and this Eved is the apetiki. That's where he's going to be able to mund the money. He's going to be able to mund the money from this Eved. Now, v'chazer v'shichere, he went ahead and he was mishacher this Eved. So the din is chayev ha-mishacher l'shalma l'balchev. The mishacher, the person that went ahead and was mishacher this Eved, has to pay the balchev. Shar hifkia shibude, he was mafkia the shibud of the Eved of the balchev on this Eved. V'gorim la'abed mamein, and he caused him to lose his money. By the apetike, I have to add that it's talking about that somebody owes someone money, and he made up that le'yehei lecha piroin elamizeh. In other words, you can't mund from me any money. You're going to only be able to mund from this evet. The evet, this evet is going to be your piroin. When the time is going to come for you to get paid up, you could only get paid up from this evet. And now this person went ahead and he was mishacher this evet. So be'etzem he doesn't have to pay the halva, because the deal was that he only le'yehei lecha piroin el mi evet zeh. But Lepel, since the fact that he was goyim that Evet should no longer be a piroin, so now he's paying him not beturas potatoes piroin achev. He's paying him potatoes piroin of the hezek, this hezek that he made on the Evet, and that's called a grummy. He was goyim that he shouldn't be able to be goyim from this Evet. V'chein adoichef matbei chaverev in his galgal v'yored liyam. So now he pushed that matbei. He never became a gazlan on it. He just pushed it, and he caused that it should be yered liyam is chayev l'shalom, because you can't get it anymore. So even though he's only a goyim, because Lepel he never became a mazik, but Lepel the person has no access to it. V'chein hatzoyrim oizen apara, a person that makes a pgam in the oizen apara, so it invalidates it from being a carbon, is chayev l'shalom shari goram lifchis dameh. So also you have to understand that right now in its present value, if a person does a damage to a behemoth, which is right now has a value, now it goes down in value, so then that's called a hezek mamish. That's not called a grama. Over here the pshat is be'etzem right now the value of the parah, if it's not being used for anything other than a regular parah, it makes no difference. It's just that eventually when you're going to want to sell it for a particular item, so then it might make a difference. That'll make a difference. So that's like a goyim. A goyim, you a goyim lifchis domer. So that's also chayiv. V'chein ha-merakea dinri chaveri v'hever tzurasim. Person has dinim, and you go, and those dinim have a tzura sticking on it, and now you bang it in. So again, you didn't really change the item. Everything of the item is still there. You didn't break anything. You just pressed it in. So you're being goyim that this item no longer has its value. That's called that's called goyim. It's not the normal way we would normally think of goyim, not the tzeirim isn't of a para, and not also the merakeh din rechaveri. When we think of goyim, the case of taking out the pillows was a regular case by us of goyim. In other words, I didn't do a direct hezek, I was goyim the hezek. Al that is a seir of shtaresis shel chaveri is also something which is easier for us to relate to goyim. In other words, I didn't do a direct hezek, I was goyim, you shouldn't be able to collect money. Over here, I'm doing a direct hezek on the dinner, but the pshat is, since I'm not really doing anything to change the dinner is really, everything is there. And it's not called a hezek shein and nicker, it's nicker, because you can see that it's pressed in. But on the other end, I didn't take anything away. I'm just being goyim that everything, the value that it had before, it doesn't have now. I can't use it as a matbeya. So that's called a goyim, and memel am chayiv, because gram is chayiv. These are the cases of a goyim which gram is chayiv. At seirim is an apara, and al der is a merakeh din rechaveri v'hevet tzurasam is chayiv l'shalim mishum goyim. This needs still bitter to understand why Hatzeirim is an apar and al derez amarakeh din rechaveri is called gerim. Halacha Yud Beis. Hazoyrik keli mireisha gag la'aretz v'lo yehoya tachtav kelim. A person throws down a keli to the ground, and v'kodem acher v'shavrei b'makel kshu ba'aver kedem sheyagir la'aretz. Someone went ahead and broke this keli before the keli actually hit the ground and then broke. So the din is harezo acher potter. Why? Shelishaver el keli shesefer lishaver miyad bevadi. He only broke a keli which was anyways going to break. V'nimtze kishever keli shaver, and ve'enza kigerim v'chen kol kiyetzbez. That's not called a goyrim. So you have to understand how it's called a goyrim. In other words, he was mamish mazik b'yadayim. He's not a goyrim at all. He's either a mazik or he's not a mazik. He's l'chura a goyrim. He for sure isn't. But al kol panim the Rambam is bringing it l'gabe this din of a goyrim, that when a person throws a keli from the roof, and that keli is about to break, and now someone else comes along and breaks it, so that second person is not considered a mazik because he's being mazik a keli shavers. You do it that the Ktsos talks about in Tesis it says clearly that this din is only when the keli is flying. In other words, when you throw a keli from the roof and the keli is about to break, and then someone goes and breaks it. So we say that a monat tover he already broke a broken keli. Masha'in kain, what happens fakert if someone throws something at a keli, and that thing that he threw at the keli is about to break the keli, and before the thing that you threw at the keli broke the keli, someone else went and broke the keli. So Tesu says that in that case it wouldn't have this din. Because this din is only if the keli itself is in a flying situation where it's about to break. Mashenka, if there's something outside the keli that's about to break the keli, then that din wouldn't apply. That's what it says in Tesus. And the Ktsos points out that the Rosh argues with this Tesus. And he says no, that even in both cases it would be considered a keli shavar. The Rambam Taka brings the case only the way it says in the Gemara, not the other way. Yeah, so you have to tzarabir what the Rambam would hold. What would be the other case? In other words, what would be if someone would throw something at a keli and the thing is about to break the keli, and then someone went ahead and broke the keli before the item, the stone that was about to break the keli, broke the keli. Is b'chia gavna? Would you also say that he broke a keli shavar? Over there, you would say no. That since the keli is standing, although there's something that's about to break it, but nevertheless the keli doesn't have a din of a keli shavar. The Rosh Ramish likol shavar el keli shesefer li shavar miyad bevadei. Halacha Yud Gimel. Sher shehoya emed la'ariga mipnei shehu mazik es abris, or ve'ilon ha'emed l'ktzitza mipnei shehu mazik es arabna. It's a tree that has to be cut off, and then v'kodem acher v'shachat sher zeh, or v'kotzatz ilon zeh shalei midas ha'bailim, and the bailim were supposed to do it. So the din is chayev l'shalom ha'bailim k'mishiyiru adayonim. So therefore, the fact that he took away like a mitzvah that the bailim had, the bailim was supposed to go ahead and kill and get rid of kshech the sher, or they were supposed to cut off the tree, and he went ahead and grabbed this mitzvah out of the bailim. So chayiv l'shalom al bailim k'meishiyiru adayonim shariv kiyon milasis mitzvah v'imtoam v'omar. But if the person that did the shchita or the ktzitza went in tainet ato marteli laharge ula katzitze, you're the one that told me to larig the behemoth or to cut off the tree. A beheil v'uemed lekach is therefore aris a potter, because there's a svara that says what he's saying is true. In other words, we know that he's mechuyev to do this, and he's timing that he did it because this person asked him to do it. So we don't really know that that's not true. So therefore he's potter. V'chein halacha Yudalid mishe shachet chayev eif. And Mamela there's a chiv of kisi adam, and now bo'achar the kisi adam shalei midas hashechet. So he chapt uis the mitzvah of kisi adam from the shechet is chayev litin k'meshiyir adayon, because the chiv of kisi adam is on the shechet. And Mamela if he chapt uis this mitzvah, so Mamela he also has to pay. V'yesh mishaherish u'nesin knas kotzuv v'u asora zehuvim, that you give asora zehuvim for this chaping uis the mitzvah. V'chein hoiru, that shekola minei abaylim aseis mitzvah asei shein ruin laseisa, anyone that prevents someone from doing a mitzvah which really he should be doing, and v'kodim acher v'asa someone else did it instead of him, is mishalim lebaylim asora zuv. He has to pay the baylim asora duv. Halacha tezvov. Shomen lemazik biyodei kederach sheshamalei mehizik mamene. There's a din when a person zmamen is mazik. So when you go ahead and you're mazik, you don't have to pay for the entire item, replace the entire item, and you take the broken pieces. The broken pieces remain the owners, the original owners, and you only have to pay for the damage. That's the din by niski mammon. when your mama was mazik. So if you yourself mazik. Shamel mazik biyode kederach sheshamel yemizik mamene ketzad. Harei shaharag behemes chaveri shaver kelov. Sham and kama hoy sabei shava v'kama nevela shava. Or v'kama hoy akeli shava v'ushalim v'kama shava ata. And umshalim apchas lenizik. You pay the pchas to the nizik imanavela akeli ashava kederach shebiyanu. So you pay the pchas to the nizik. But you don't have to replace the keder shebiyanu b'sheidish shezik shedin echadu. Dorach anovin shel chaveri, he pressed someone's grapes, is shamalei hazeka. You have to say it in the tzir over here that through pressing the grapes there was a loss. Either the wine spoiled, the wine wasn't good. Al kol panim, the grapes were worth more than what you have now with the wine. So therefore is also shamalei hazeka. So the nekudas advarim is that you don't pay for the entire original item, and you replace the original item, and you keep whatever is left. All you have to do is pay for the loss that happened as a result, the difference of where it was originally before you were mazik it, as opposed to how it was after you were mazik. Halacha tezayin. When you take the pchas from the mazik, when the mazik has to pay, is the first thing is goyven min ha-metaltlin shlo. You take from his metaltlin, from the movable objects. Im einle metaltlin is goyven min ha-yofesh ben chosav, which is from the yofesh ben chosav, means from the idios. V'chein ha'enes v'amefate v'ametzi shamra is kulon goyven min ha-yofesh ben chosav. So the din is that a mazik you take from his metaltlin. And if he doesn't have metaltlin, so then you take min ha-yofesh ben chosav, which is the idios. Which is be'emes, there's a shaila there. Tesis is the shaila. That l'chura, what the din is that you assess. You don't that shaman lemazik biyode, just like you shaman to a mazik niski moment. What does shaman lemazik mean? That you don't have to. The mazik doesn't have to pay for the entire item as it was, and he'll take the shvarim. He has to only pay for the difference of how much it was worth originally before it broke, as opposed to how much it was worth after it broke. So let's say a person has a keli. This keli originally was worth $100. Now he went ahead and broke it, so now it's worth $50. So the shaila is, how much does he have to pay him? So there would be a svara to say he has to pay him $100, because the keli was worth $100, replace the keli, and the broken parts of the keli he'll keep for himself. Or we say no, he only has to pay, since the broken parts of the keli belongs to the original owner, so those broken parts of the keli still belong to the original owner. All he has to do is pay him the $50. So that's what we're saying over. You don't have to pay him the $100. You pay him only the $50. But the shaila is, let's say the din would be you have to pay him the $100. So why can't the mazik say, I have to pay you $100? So I'll pay you $100. $50 I'll pay you with the broken keli, because that's metaltlum. It has shavius. And the other $50 I'll give you the money. So in Lepel, the din will come out the same thing. In other words, whether the din is that he has to replace the item, or whether the din is he only has to pay for the hezek, either way, he could use the broken item in order to pay for the item. In order to pay for the item. So the minaf gemina that he doesn't have to replace the item. Anyways, even if he wouldn't have to replace the item, he'd be able to do the same thing. So be'emes, the din is that by a ganav is ein shamal a ganav. A ganav taka has to replace the item. And over there, there's this, also Tesis has a whole deal on what's pshat that he has to replace the item. But l'chura Pashas and Rambam, we learned that he has to pay shnayim chayim yishalim. You have to pay a lebed kazach. In other words, let's say if a person steals a behema, and then the behema dies biyad hamazik, biyad haganef. So now the ganef can give him back the nevela and plus whatever was worth the nevela plus. He has to pay him back a lebed behema. And Taki can use the nevela to pay back for the behema. Masha'inkan over here, that by a mazik for sure he could use l'chura the broken pieces in order to pay up for the hezek. So l'chura l'maynaf kimina. So the Maisa's Tesis says over there that it depends. L'moshel, let's say the broken pieces went down in value. B'shas hezek, the broken pieces were worth 50. Now the broken pieces are worth 40. So if the pshat is that you have to pay only for the break, so the broken pieces were worth 50, so maybe you only owe 50, because the broken pieces belongs to the nizik. It went down in value, so that's the nizik's item that went down in value. Masha'inkin, if be'etzim you have to replace the item, so when do you replace the item? When you actually make the payment. Now, so Einochinami, B'shas Maisa was only 50, but now it's already worth 40. So since it's worth 40, so you're going to have to add 60. So that's the Chiddush. The Chiddush is no, that you don't have to pay for the whole item, and you're going to use the broken pieces as part of the payment. but rather you only have to pay for the break for whatever the hezek caused for it to depreciate in value. Yeah. Halacha Yud Zayin. Kol mazik mammon chaveri ve'enu yedeh ma hezek. If a person did a hezek, but he doesn't know how much he was mazik, but we know for sure he did a hezek. So the din is harei hanizik nishba b'takonas chachamim v'neitel k'mei sheyitin hanigzel. Neitel k'mei sheyitin hanigzel. Just like by nigzel there's such a din. There's meikra the din should really be a mitzvah chaver al v'raya. So Mela, the nizik is tiny that you owe him money, you have to bring a raya. Mela, since there's no raya, he doesn't have to pay. But mitakonas chachamim that know that he should be a nishba v'neitel, just like a nigzal. If we know for sure that this person was a gazlan, we don't know how much, and the nigzal is tiny that he was gezel more than the gazlan is admitting, or that the edim know for a fact. So then the din is that the nigzal is nishba v'neitel. Saldera is over here when we know that this person was a mazik, and we don't know how much, and the nizik is tiny more. So the din is that the nizik is a nishba v'neitel. Abavahu sheyitin dvarim shu amud behem k'mei shebiyarna b'nigzal. There has to be something which we could assess that he shaykhs to have such a thing. In other words, if a person is a poor man, he's going to come along and said that he had an enormous amount of money over there, so then we don't believe him because we don't assume that he has that type of money in his possession. Ketzat. Lokach kis chaveri, someone took someone's wallet, v'ishliche liyam liyesh, he throws it into the river or into the fire. Esher Mosir b'yadanis, he puts it into a person that's an honest, and that person takes away the money, the money is gone. Now, Bala Kiseimer, the owner of the wallet, says, Zuhim was filled with golden coins. I have no idea what was in there. Shem offer maybe there was just earth in there. So the din is, that's this din. He could be a nishba v'netel. Things that we could assess that he could have. It's not ogifrek that he has it. Or people would put it as a bikoden by him. And also, v'darkon l'hanichon b'kisu k'yetzebei. And it would be normal for him to put it into this type of a wallet. In other words, you have to have two factors. First of all, that it makes sense that he has this type of money, and also that it makes sense that this type of item would be in this type of a keli. But if the derech is not l'hanichon b'keli zeh, who pasha b'atzmin? The Lashon who pasha b'atzmin sounds like he did something wrong, but we'll see behemshech that the pshat is we don't believe him. Because he pasha b'atzmi, he caused himself a problem by the fact that he put it into such a keli, and now we're not going to believe him that this was in that keli. Ketzat hareisha chotav chemes esak esal meleim umechupim. He grabs a jar, or he grabs a basket that was full and covered. Ve'ishlicham liyam l'safrim. He throws it into the yam. And the nizik is tiny, that there were diamonds in this sal, there was diamonds in this chemes. Is we don't believe him. It's not going to help a nishba v'netel. We're not going to let him be a nishba v'netel. It's not a regular thing for a person to put diamonds in jars or in baskets, and therefore we don't believe him. We don't. Nishba v'netel is not going to help. However, v'im tofas, if lepel the nizek was teifus, he's tiny that there was diamonds there, and he was teifus from the mazik, and now he wants to take from what he was teifus in order to pay himself back. So then what he was teifus he could keep. And now nishba, he still has to be a nishba. Nishba shemar goli soyaba, and then v'netel mimashi yashetzli v'chein kol kiyetzvasa. In other words, to go ahead and be moitzi from the mazik, we're not going to be moitzi from the mazik, even with a shvur. Because Lepel, since he's tining something which doesn't really make sense that someone should put it into such a keli, so we're not going to believe even as a nishba to be a neitel. If he was already a neitel, now he wants to be a nishba to keep on to it, like a person is nishba and a chayfetz that he has in his possession, and he's tining someone owes him money. So the din is you're always a nishba when you're tining that someone owes you money about something which you have in your possession. So then we believe him. Then the neitel mashiyesh etzli v'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh. Halachi yutes. Yoda Hamazik Shakis Hoya Bezuvim. He agrees that there was Zuhuvim there. In the case before, he says maybe there was offer there. He wasn't masking about anything. Mashengan over here is saying, I know there was Zuhuvim, but I don't know how many. Ve'emer HaNizik Elef Hoyu, and the Nizik is tiny, there was 1,000. So then is Natal Elef B'Lishvor. Then he could take the whole 1,000 without a shvur. Why? V'hu Shiyah Amad. But that's only if it makes sense that the nizik should have this type of money. Whereas if it doesn't make sense that the nizik should have such type of money, we don't rechazach with this type of a taina, and therefore we don't consider it side that he should be able to be a nishba v'netel, inside that we'll say on him mitek sheni yochel l'shava mishalim, because we don't rechazach with the taina. But if v'hu shiyah amud, why? So why are we saying that he could take without a shvur? The answer is sharizeh mazik mechuyev shvur. In other words, he's a made of mixes. He's made that I took some zuvim. And the other one is tining that he took 1,000 zuvim. And lepel, he can't swear because he doesn't know. He says, I don't know. Maybe I took 1,000 zuvim. So he's being made that maybe he took 1,000 zuvim. So therefore he goes into the gather of a made of a mixas, and he's any idea. Let's chamshi yadayna v'chamshi leyadayna. And memela he's a mechuyev shuv and yochel l'shavah. So he's mishalim. Sharizeh mazik mechuyev shuv and yochel l'shavah. K'mei she'izbar b'inyan hapikod.